Hey everybody, Coach here. Hey, thanks for taking a couple of minutes and joining me this week. Man, Maestro and I are up in the far north regions of Minnesota. As you see around us, and you take a look at a few of these pictures, you will see that fall has arrived, and it's arrived in spades. My gosh, the short bike ride that we took yesterday, it took us probably 3 to 4 hours to finish that ride, only because there was so much to look at, so much to photograph, and then some wildlife and everything. Picture perfect day, it really was. But that's not why we're here today. What we're here to talk about is your bones of your landscape, and I'll explain that really in detail in the next few minutes. It's a way through your designing and your planning to allow your landscape to stand on its own when everything else, all your pizzazz and all your wow, has gone to sleep for the year. Are you with me? Let's get started, shall we? You know, if you were with me last week and we talked about color chasing and how you can extend out that colorful season in your landscape, starting from the very early of spring all the way to the late fall, and if you're in some of the warmer climates, all year long. But, there's always a but. For you guys up in the northern climes and in zones, say, 5 or less, like where we're at right now outside of Bemidji, Minnesota, yeah, zone 3. There's just no way that you can really extend, unless you're greenhousing it or indoor gardening, can you really extend that color season. So what are you left with? So for a good savvy homeowner and a designer worth their salt, you have to approach it from the angle of bones of the landscape. Design a landscape that counteracts that and allows those bleak winter months to at least look like you still have something out there besides sticks and twigs. And that's where we're talking about the bones of the landscape today. Now, in many cases, I'm talking to those guys that are way up north, but many times, Mother Nature has other things in store for you. And cold snaps and cold spells can dip way down into the southern latitudes. Just ask the Midwest of the USA last February 2021. Yeah, Mother Nature set a cold vortex all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Snow in Houston, Texas. Who would have thought? And man, there was a catastrophe as far as landscaping down there. Things that had no business being in the teens, yeah, they lost a lot of plant material. So up in those colder regions, 3, 4, 5, even 6s at times, you're going to have landscape material. Other than perennials and flowers and bulbs, you're going to have plant material that can stand up to these rigorous, very chilly temperatures and frozen soils. It's where we kind of get off into the evergreen trip, where the types of plants and types of trees are generally evergreen in nature. Some of them hold their leaves all year long, like some of the wintergreen boxwood, some types of holly, and a lot of the juniper, pine, cypress world too. And it gives you at least a green tapestry as far as what's left there in the bleak month of January or February, when the howling winds and the snows and the cold temperatures well below the teens might creep in. Now, the use of these type of landscapes can be multifunctional, depending on what your situation is. They can be windbreaks from those harsh colds, protect some of your house from the heat-robbing winds that come with winter. They could also be snow breaks if you're in a more rural area. Boy, we've seen a lot of those lately, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet of snow break. And by gosh, it actually provides some form of color other than white when all the snow is all over the ground. You have greens, you have some golds, and even some of the evergreens that kind of turn a little rusty color in the winter time when the cold weather comes. So you do have some contrast. You know, these bones of the landscape, these sentinels of the colder months, if you want to use that term, you know, they hang in there all the way through. When we're freezing cold, you know, the dog doesn't go outside very much, and yet you want to have something of a landscape to look at, to drive into the driveway to, and to show off to the neighbors. As soon as they've done their job, come February, late February into March, depending on where you live, then those ham bones, those show-offs of the perennial world, the bulb world, the blooming trees that you have out there, they come back and they steal the show. Meanwhile, those bones, they finally come back to life a little bit, start pushing out some of their spring growth, and they come back as well. In some cases, the bones of the landscape might have a little color to them themselves too, and enjoy those. But I'm mainly speaking to what they do for you in the cold, wet, snowy winter months, when everything else is on vacation. Now, if you're in some of the warmer climes, like for me, I was in zone 9A, there's all kinds of selections that you can make. You can make selections that are in the nurseries almost year-round. I'll tell you one that I used in zone 9A, and it was really good because it gave winter color when everything else was pretty much checking out. And that was the Sasanqua camellia. And I used several varieties depending on the situation I was using them in. But the Jean Mays, the Apple Blossoms, the Shishi-Gaishiras, they all gave a nice, good red, pink, dappled type of color. And they started in the fall, those workhorses, and they went all the way through the winter, all the way into February, even early March, depending on which year from which year. There was one that was called Yuletide. You should check it out if you're in that particular area, because it blooms when? Yuletide season, obviously. So check Sasanqua camellia out. Now, in some other warmer zones, you can get all kinds of selections. And I'm going to put some at various spots on the screen so you can check them out. For the real cold areas, like in upper Minnesota right now, you're going to be relegated pretty much to evergreen type of plants. Juniper, pine, cypress, cedars, some hollies. You can get some evergreen hollies, maybe even some boxwood. But those guys, they're going to be your vertical entertainment for the winter months. Now, another way that you can still add interest to the bleak winter landscape, and that is with some deciduous plants that are either decoratively pruned so they really have a very unique sweeping shape, and then you can put a little illumination underneath them at night, or you find some that have decorative bark. And one that I remember very much so was Arctic Fire dogwood, and also the yellow twig dogwood. The colder it got, the brighter the colors. And much like the yellows and golds that are surrounding me right now, the yellow twig dogwood really reacted very nice if you had a snow-covered situation. And the fiery red of that Arctic Fire dogwood was really kind of spectacular. And you can have those in mid-beds with a nice evergreen backdrop behind them, and you got something that still looks good even in January. Now, in order to accomplish this, does it take maybe a couple extra mental steps in order to accomplish it? Absolutely. A little bit of thinking, a little bit of research, and certainly a nursery visit or two. You might want to ask a question or two of the nursery professionals in your area, or you can always shoot me an email and ask your question to me. If I don't have the answer right off the top of my head, I will find it for you, I promise you that. I think with some of the selections of landscape bones, selection of plants, you know, even though you're relegated to kind of evergreen stuff, I think it really carries very nicely, especially in the holiday seasons, when you have a snow-covered tapestry and the heavy boughs of your evergreens are limbing down a little bit from the weight of the snow. I think it really has a very, very appealing effect in the winter months. And then you may have lighting decorations and other things that go with the holidays. Kind of a special scene, it really is, and you should be proud of it. And you'll probably be one of the only few people that have something that isn't the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field look with just grass and a tree or two. You have something that's really well thought out. You bring it from the house all the way out towards the street, and in the backyard from the slider all the way to the fence, and you have various things. Then as the snow starts to melt off a little bit through a warmer day or two, you know, go out there with a broom and knock some of that stuff off, and you have a landscape to look at all over again. Now, depending on the size of your landscape, most, if not almost all, designers kind of use the bones of the plants as backdrop plants or mid-bed type of plants. And although this is really kind of common, depending on the size of the landscape that you have, depending on the bed size, you can have tall screen-like things that run down the middle, you know, and space them out a little bit and maybe stagger them. I can remember one high elevation landscape that I did many years ago, and it was probably 35-foot deep bed because that's how much room we had to work with. And I ran a privacy screen right down the center of it, and then I put things on either side because the bed was so deep, and it really turned out slick. Now, if you're limited on space, you may only have, you know, fence line plantings or property line plantings. Call it good. You can only work with what you have. Back to the pruning thing for just a second. Consider some of these selections if you'd like. Weeping Blue Atlantic Cedar, Young Eye Birch with its bright white bark, coral bark Japanese maples, some of the dissectum Japanese maples, even mid-sized manzanita and California lilac can be raised and pruned in certain fashions that really look slick in the wintertime. Hey, if you followed me for any length of time, you know how much I love color. I really do. But in those very, very cold winter months, you know, sometimes you're just relegated to what you can do. But if you use it to your advantage, those bones, those evergreen sentinels out there in the wintertime can be used and really look good in the winter months. So don't forget about them as you plan out your landscape. It'll really come back to pay in spades when it comes to the look and the feel of your landscape. And then when spring hits, the rest of the players will come back. Now, if you want a little cheat sheet, something that I've used for several years, and that's Monrovia.com. Check out their selection and especially their Plant Finder website if you'd like to be just clued in on a few things that may work very well in your area. Put in your zip code, type out your needs, and see what Monrovia kicks back. The other thing is always check out your local mom and pop nurseries. They're not going to carry things that don't work in your area. Now, smaller areas of the country, smaller neighborhood type of nurseries, they may shut down altogether and not open up until leaves start popping. But you can only do what you can do. Do some research on those cold winter nights on the couch. Then get up and go out there and find the bones of your landscape. I think you'll be very pleased at how many selections you can actually use. Make sure you use good planning techniques. And if you have any questions regarding this particular philosophical discussion of landscape designing and planning, hey, shoot me an email. Hey, that's what I have for you this week. Please don't forget to take a look on the YouTube channel and look at the join button there. We are putting together a platform that's going to reward anybody that rewards us for all the free education we give them. So check it out. Also the website, good book, and a good digital course there, plus the free 15-step giveaway. I appreciate your time. If you've stuck around this long, please consider subscribing and give me a like. I really would appreciate it. The channel is still growing very well and we're happy with it. Until next week, to your landscape success. Bye for now.